Recording in progress.
Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. Our Just Transition Forum Asia 2024 is about to start soon. We just like to take a moment to thank everyone who is joining us in this session. We have participants coming in already. We see people in the chat group messaging people from Philippines, Vietnam, Saudi Arabia, Bangladesh, Malaysia. We see all of the messages coming in, so feel free to drop a message. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Our program is going to start shortly. Thank you. And we have more participants coming in. We see messages coming from Indonesia, from Bangladesh, from Pakistan. Yes, thank you to everyone sharing, especially the ones who are tuning in from, I think time zones can be a little bit complicated depending on where you're tuning in from. So thank you very much for taking the time to be with us, no matter where you are tuning in from. Feel free to share a bit more about the work that you do in the chat. We see people sharing a bit more about their organization and greeting each other in their local language. Thank you for being with us here today. We're so excited to have you for Just Transition Forum Asia 2024. Our program will begin shortly. Thank you very much. All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to Just Transition Forum Asia 2024. My name is Siege Dantenko Malolas. I'm a journalist from the Philippines, and I'd like to start today's program by thanking each and every one of you for being here with us today. We're expecting over 600 attendees from more than 50 countries for this year's edition of JTFA. Since the inaugural staging in 2021, JTFA has been organized annually by Friedrich Ebert Stiftung, or FES, Regional Climate and Energy Project in Asia, in collaboration with Climate Action Network Southeast Asia, or CANSEA. This year's JTFA will be taking place from September 4 to 6, 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock p.m. GMT +7. Over the years, JTFA's role in promoting the profile and importance of just transition has expanded and intensified. This, of course, is timely given the developments on just transition at the global level. The Just Transition Work Program, adopted at the 28th Conference of Parties, or COP28 in 2023, included references to labor rights and social protection. And crucially, COP28 saw a historic agreement on a loss and damage fund aimed at supporting especially vulnerable countries. But despite this milestone, we all know that questions remain. While different countries in Asia experience varying climates, together our region is most affected by climate change. The Loss and Damage Fund's initial contributions may have come up to 700 million US dollars, but this is so far from the estimated 300 to 700 billion US dollars a year needed to cope with loss and damage. In addition to this, there is still also a critical need to ensure that the funding will go to the most vulnerable, those who need it the most, without adding to their existing burdens. Those voices need to be heard, they need to have a seat at the table. And so, with this in mind, JTFA 2024 picks up the theme emphasizing finance for loss and damage in just transition. Our forum brings together different stakeholders from governments, civil society, academia, businesses, think tanks, the labor movement, and organizations from Asia and beyond. No matter what country or organization you're from, we are all here with the same goal, and that is to learn from each other and be inspired to action so that together we can build towards a socially inclusive and climate resilient future. In our main lobby, you can click on the Sessions tab that's going to be at the top of your screen to see our different lab schedules. When a lab session has already started, all you have to do is click Join to enter. You can also bookmark any sessions to your interest, and they're going to go to your Itinerary tab. Next to Itinerary, there's going to be a Speakers tab where you can see a whole list of and also engage with our distinguished speakers who will be joining us throughout our 3-day event. Now, in case you have any inquiries or support, you can also reach out to us in the lobby chat. So let's get the ideas flowing by bringing in key voices. Up first, we have our opening remarks to be delivered by Franziska Schmidtke, Regional Director, Climate and Energy Project, FES Asia. Hello, Franziska.
Hi, and hello to everyone. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. Dear ladies and gentlemen, it's a true honor today to welcome you to the 4th round of the Just Transition Forum Asia. I'm very happy to welcome you today on behalf of the Climate Action Network Southeast Asia, our partner, and Friedrich Ebert Stiftung's Regional Climate and Energy Project in Asia. We already heard. We came together for this 4th run of the Just Transition Forum because we felt it would be especially fitting to focus this year on the intersection of climate finance and the just transition. The conversations around climate action have matured significantly, and 2024 has been already a year where the role of finance has moved to the forefront of the climate debate. Recognizing that finance is really the cornerstone of enabling equitable transitions, we've centered this year's forums on how to harness financial mechanisms to support a fair shift to sustainable energy systems. We are super thrilled that we again assembled key stakeholders as well as emerging experts sharing their insights, and we will again range our topics from global initiatives to international partnerships, standout national policies from Southeast Asia, alongside innovative local practices, as we really want to give space to each and every one of those important initiatives. With this forum, we hope that we can provide a crucial space for discussing how we can not only meet ambitious climate targets, but do so also in a way that promotes social and economic equity. I'm excited about the conversation ahead and the role they will play in shaping the dialogue on finance and justice as we approach COP29. Thank you, all of you, for being part of this critical conversation. I really look forward to the thought-provoking discussions that we usually have in this forum. Yeah, I'm just really looking forward to enjoying these next couple of days, to meeting new and exciting people with just very thought-provoking ideas and experiences. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Francisca. Like you mentioned, right, there are going to be so many thought-provoking discussions over the next few days. And with that, let's now enter our opening panel. So our opening panel tackles financing for loss and damage, multi-stakeholder perspective. So our speakers for this will be Harjeet Singh, Global Engagement Director of the Fossil Fuel Non-Proliferation Treaty Initiative, Dirk Meyer, Head of Directorate General 4 in the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development of Germany, Luan Shi, Group Chief Sustainability Officer of the CIMB Banking Group in Malaysia, and finally, Vicente Paulo B. Yu III, Thematic Coordinator of Loss and Damage and Global Stocktake for the G77 and China Negotiating Bloc in the United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change. Now, if you need additional details on our panels, you can learn more about them in our speakers tab in the main event lobby. And we now turn this over to our moderator, the Director and Regional Coordinator of CANC, Niti Nesadurai. Hello again, Niti.
Hi, Siege, and thanks for the lead-in. It is my privilege to moderate the opening panel session of Just Transition Forum Asia, comprising a truly outstanding panel of speakers. Some of, with the exception of perhaps Dirk Meyer, very good friends, and really a pleasure to welcome you all, and very pleased to be associated and acquainted with you too, Dirk. Francisca has already set the stage for this year's theme for Just Transition Forum Asia on emphasizing finance for loss and damage in just transition, basically to provide a wider perspective on just transition. So the format for this panel session, I will ask the panelists to give opening remarks, and with a question I will pose to them. And then we'll go in the order of Harjeet, Dirk, Vice, and then Luan for the first round. And then I'll come back for second round of questions, and then we'll pick up some maybe from the audience as well. So with that, first of all, let me go to you, Harjeet. You've been championing the issue of loss and damage since the 16th Conference of Parties, or COP16. Of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. This was in Cancun in 2010. Fast forward to COP27, as Siege had highlighted in 2022, we saw a breakthrough with the decision to create the Loss and Damage Fund, followed by its operationalization on day one of COP28 in 2023, last year. So with the board now established, the Loss and Damage Fund board now established, and governance structures being put in place, please share your insights on the current status of loss and damage globally, particularly in light of the increasing impacts of climate change and extreme weather events. How are these developments financially straining vulnerable communities? So, Harjeet?
Thank you very much, Niti. And first of all, congratulations to all of you, and wishes for another successful JTFA session. And also, thank you for expanding the definition or the perspective of just transition. The way we talk about just transition, sometimes in a very narrow sense, will not be achieved if we don't look at the full spectrum of climate action. To characterize, I would say, if people have lost their homes, can we really talk to them about solar panels and resilient homes? They've lost their homes, right? So that's the reality we are living. We are already at a point where climate disasters are hitting us hard. And before we recover from that, we are hit harder by the next one. So communities around the world are not able to cope with the increasing intensity and frequency of climate impacts. And we knew about it 50 years ago, that climate impacts are going to be there. 30 years ago, thanks to the leadership of vulnerable countries who talked about adverse impacts of climate change and need for a mechanism. Of course, we didn't get it until the conversation started only a few years ago. And finally, as Niti, you said, and C's also highlighted how we got the agreement on loss and damage fund. As we are spending time to set up this fund and focus on the administrative stuff, the reality is climate disasters are not waiting for us to, make this institution work in a manner that can support everybody. Disasters are hitting, money is not being delivered to people, and they're already losing their homes without getting adequate support to recover. Whether we talk about cyclones in Philippines or heat waves and floods in South Asia or Hong Kong getting record rain, China, Japan getting affected. So really, we are in a very dire situation. Having said that, we also are trying to make sure that the institution that is being set up is fit for purpose. So a number of things that have been achieved so far, just to give you a quick update, Niti, as you asked for. The name itself was a bit contentious. Finally, we've got a name for it. It's not Loss and Damage Fund, it's Fund for Responding to Loss and Damage. Thankfully, the term loss and damage remains. Philippines has been confirmed as the host of the Loss and Damage Fund, which is going to provide legal identity to this fund, which is absolutely needed. And I'm so pleased. It's a global South country, and which is going to provide that legal identity to proceed. Another process which is connected to that is getting a host and the secretariat, which is going to act as the institution that's going to function, and that's where World Bank has almost been confirmed. So they have showed willingness, and their board has passed. And now, in the next board meeting, in the next 2 weeks, there's going to be a confirmation of the process that is required for such an financial institution to be set up. One more thing that's on a priority right now is hiring of the executive director. And the third board meeting, which is happening from 18th to 20th in Baku, Azerbaijan, that's going to be one of the key focus areas. We've also got a work plan until for the next several months. And that work plan talks about all the elements that are required to set up the institution. Going forward, what we are going to look at is issues related to community access, direct access, what kind of financial instruments are going to be required, observer participation, how civil society can engage. So some of these things are on the agenda. But one thing that really concerns us as part of the work plan, Niti, is the resource mobilization strategy. The finalization of that has been shifted to the end of 2025. Now that is really worrying. And we would like the process to begin as soon as possible. So we cannot wait for the executive director to be hired. We can start the process now. Of course, once the person is in place, can be involved. And another aspect, and again, we all know, about $700 million have been pledged. Where is that money? It's hanging up in the air. We need to make sure that this money is now received and being channeled without waiting for every formality to be done for the institution. And I've myself spoken to the World Bank, and they're saying it's possible. So all the pledges now should result into real money. So your question, people are suffering. We have some money pledged. It's not enough. We need hundreds of billions of dollars, but at least let's start with the money that has been pledged.
Thanks, Harjit. And very quickly, I'll just jump in. So in your view, talking about money, how can we ensure an adequate continuous flow of finance into the fund, particularly from the large historical emitters? And what mechanisms or commitments could be prioritized to ensure the fund's sustainability and effectiveness? If you could respond to that briefly before I move on to Dirk.
Sure.
Asia as a region is most affected by climate change, we can see that Asian countries are dealing differently with climate change. The climate ambition varies really a lot within the region, but therefore also FAS is trying to provide support and really building also these broad progressive alliances that can bridge between different stakeholders and formulate voices within Asia so that they can also come together and really pitch what is most important for Asian countries to have in the future loss and damage fund and how climate finance will be available.
The Loss and Damage Fund has been operationalized, and the initial contributions came up to about $700 million from a few contributor countries. We made pledges to the fund. This is woefully inadequate, and it is estimated that the amount of money required for countries to cope with loss and damage is estimated to be anywhere between $300 to $700 billion a year.
So the current governance structure of loss and damage fund, it provides quite a good space for developing countries. So it is encouraged those countries to nominate board members with expertise in technical expertise. That's one. And also there is also the expert panel to support the operation of the board of this fund. And this also allows engagement of stakeholder groups, youth groups, CSOs, indigenous communities. So governance structure of loss and damage fund allows developing countries to have their stronger voice.
And civil society will be putting pressure on the board to make sure that all the decisions on how the fund is to be utilized will be done in a manner where those who have been affected, those who are suffering most of the consequences of climate change are the ones who get priority in receiving the funds. Given the number of extreme weather events which are going on at present, there's going to be a lot of demand for the funds. So it is vital that the governance aspects of the Loss and Damage Fund, which will decide on who's vulnerable, who's eligible, who should get the money first, who governs, who's the representation on the board of the Loss and Damage Fund, which will make all these decisions, is all critical.
A very key component we need to think about for Loss and Damages Fund is whether the fund will really go, the use of proceeds, whether the grant or whatever shape or form, the funding can really go in the hands of people who are most affected by climate change without adding to their burden. Then those who are most vulnerable really should have a say, in the governance of the fund, right? How to ensure that they have a seat at the table. I think this would be very critical.
Vietnam has pledged to be CO2 neutral by 2050, which is really ambitious, and the international community is applauding Vietnam for this kind of ambition. But in order to get there, we need sizable climate finance available. Vietnam is now part of the Just Energy Transition Partnership, which will help in getting some of the financing, for example, for projects like updating the grid, bringing really also renewables to the grid and therefore making renewables accessible to the whole society. But still, there are a lot of hurdles that Asian countries need to pass.
For example, low-income farmers and other vulnerable groups who are already bearing the brunt of economic downturns and the extreme inequality in the country. So I think I look at Loss and Damages Fund, the more that these vulnerable groups can access the financing, the funding, it's also not only to help with climate change impact, but also potentially help with bridging or at least alleviating inequality in Thailand. So I think that when we think about things like inclusive economy, which should be the kind of the aim going forward in the future for economic development, Loss and Damages Fund to me has these sort of implications.
How well do governments know about the global stocktake? That's a very interesting question. Obviously, the negotiators who represent our countries at the UNFCCC, they know about it. The evidence we see, at least in countries in Southeast Asia, is that it's limited. outside those who are in the Department of Climate Change and the Ministry of Environment, because countries are not adopting a whole of government approach towards the climate change. We need to create the institutional framework within the countries whereby all agencies within government are taking action and deciding, like, it could be agriculture, it could be defense, it could be rural development. Every one of them has to assess all the activities and see how much are we contributing to climate change and how can we reduce emissions. And in this way, the global stocktake can be mainstreamed within the government.
I want Thailand to hopefully see the global stocktake as one component to build our green growth strategy.
UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, Paris Agreement, both contain the language actions for climate empowerment. And these actions for climate empowerment is about the public participation, education, and training, access to information, and international cooperation. So this is directly related to role of CSOs and other multi-stakeholder groups. So without their active role in climate action, we wouldn't be able to raise ambition of governments. So, and also in addition to that, many of our actions, solutions are being developed and implemented by very diverse multi-stakeholder groups.
So for us as FES, we've always came from the perspective that we want to put forward a just transition. For us, it's pivotal to really bring together just aspects into the climate world and close the gap also between different stakeholders. And then hopefully through a platform like the Just Transition Forum Asia, we can also support progressive and broad stakeholder alliances to really put forward their voices in international climate negotiations.